Alright, everybody, welcome back to VectorSigma.info. Today we have another episode of the Protocols, and I got some special guests with me today. I'm actually really pumped because I've never done a podcast with these guys, and I haven't done one with Anthony in like, I don't know, 8 months probably, so it's been a hell of a long time. But my special guests today are the two official grind lords of the Discord. They each earned it once. One of them has earned it a lot. So let's check out my buddy to right, Mr. Ogar. How you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good to hear. And then below me today we have Mr. Zigamus. I am Ziggy. However the hell you want to call him. His name's actually Anthony. We'll never call him that, though. How you doing, Zig?
Doing good, you know?
That's good.
Living life.
That's cool.
Living the dream.
That's cool. So, you guys are pretty new to the channel. Ziggy's been around a couple times in the past, but Ogar, this I think is your first time to like really be able to talk on the channel. So, let's give everyone like a little bit of an introduction to who you are, to the Discord, the community, and what's your background in gaming.
So, I mean, I played like Magic when I was a kid. That was about it. And then when the whole COVID quarantine hit, I started playing Magic again online because a buddy of mine got me into Commander, and it was actually looking for Magic singles on TCG Player that I found an ad for the Transformers game, and so I started playing that as Wave 5 came out, and then as we all know, shortly after that, the game was canceled. So that was kind of like a pretty big bummer. But the nice thing is the community has soldiered on, and we've got, we're coming up on now the 4th set of ATP cards. The meta has shifted many times, so it stays active and interesting. As someone who plays a lot of the League games on the Vector Sigma Discord, I like how active and involved people are in the community and with the game. And, you can still find people to play the game with. People are always playing Full Constructed, Titan 1, people are playing Junkion when, there's testing coming up for upcoming tournaments. Like, there's all these different formats, and then obviously we've been playing a lot of Primus lately again as well, which I absolutely love. I really think that Primus is the single most fun way to play this game, in my opinion. As much as I love the tournaments and the those formats, I think Primus is the most fun way to play this game. And so I've really been getting into playing Primus with groups of people. So I just try to be as active as I can be in the community on the Discord, and it's nice to play with people who've been playing the game throughout its entire life, and also get to play with people who are just finding the game now. So and everybody in between.
So here's a fun question before I pitch to Anthony. You have played, I think, like almost 950 games to the date. Do you think any of the active players in the Discord, between tournaments or league play, do you think there's a single one that you haven't played? Or do you know of one that you haven't played? Like in a tournament or even league play at all? Like, could you I wasn't sure if like you were keeping count, like I gotta get this guy, I gotta get that guy. Like if there was someone that you're like, man, do I have that guy? Because I'm not sure. Hi, Kelly.
I don't play a lot. There's a few people that I don't play a lot. But I can't think of anybody that I haven't played. Like, Scott is the only person that I can think of that I haven't played many times.
Sure.
But I've definitely played him in tournaments. I played him in a top 8 one time. So like even him, I've definitely played against him before.
Okay. I was just curious if like maybe you were like you had a list, like no, I gotta get that guy, I gotta get him. All right.
This guy.
Right.
I don't think actually me and Ogar have ever played each other.
In a tournament?
I don't think so. No. I'm kidding. We played like the 1 month. I think it was like we were just like battling with each other, and it was like I think one of us was like 50 something and the other one was 40 something. I probably was lower, and then like I started grinding out games with Gemty. So
yeah. Well, real quick, Zig, let's remind everyone who you are and what your background is in gaming.
So my name is Ziggy, Anthony, whatever you want to call it. I do a lot of online gaming, a lot of first-person shooters. Have played all games. I love Commander. as well. So Primus is pretty much a fit for me because I love playing it. I mean, like this morning, Wyatt sends me a message at like I think it was 9 o'clock our time, and he's like, "Yo, we need an eighth. You need to be our knight." And then that's where the Bud Knight gift came in.
Nice.
And I was just like, all right. For I guess for those of you who don't know, I've been playing World of Warcraft now since pretty much Burning Crusade, and I've been a paladin, so it was like the Knight Paladin. I was just like, oh, it's a perfect fit. I could do this. Started playing Transformers in Wave 5, just like Ogar. I played a few times before then, like random tournaments with Dan, because we live close together. We've been friends for quite some time, and I wanted to get into the game. Yeah,
I was talking about it this morning with the guys over in the WoW chat. 16 years, bro. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and wow. I mean, I wanted to play the entire time. We weren't really doing anything, me and our other friend Brian, and I was just like, I wanted to get back into playing cards. It had been a couple of years. You take a hiatus from cards, and you never really go too far away from it. You always play something, like even if it's like small. Yeah,
riding a bike.
Exactly, and you learn a few new games, and then you're like, cool. And like the My Hero Academia game is coming out sometime soon, and I would love to try it because I love the anime. But I mean, Transformers, I felt like was a good fit for me because it was a challenge one, which I always can enjoy that. Just in general, I think it's a really fun game. It's awesome being able to play with Optimus Prime and Hot Rod and all that stuff. So, I mean, they're my favorite. Say what?
Being attacked by the dog.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's basically it. I don't have a near straight direction like Ogar's sound was. His was like regimented. He knew exactly what he was saying.
He was prepared. Look at him, man.
Exactly.
Look at that beard, though. Seriously, before we get into spoilers. Spoiler alert: his beard, fucking glorious. All right. All right. So we are here. We are here to talk spoilers today. I'm gonna spoil everyone now and tell you that we have 3. Oh shit, son. Oh man. We're gonna do the battle card first, particularly because I think it's someone's favorite, at least one of the favorites in the set. So let's spoil Nothing to Lose for everybody here, guys. So Nothing to Lose is a star card. I'm gonna point that out first because if anyone reads this card and doesn't realize it's a star card, big problems will be had. So
no, I think it's perfectly fine. It'll make a perfectly legal deck.
Totally a star card. So we are a white Pip, a orange Seeker Pip, and a blue Wrecker Pip. It's an action, and it says while this card is in your hand, if your opponent's card would cause you to scrap this card, instead reveal this card and it isn't scrapped. So basically, let's just use Major Shockwave as an example. If they flip Major Shockwave down, you get to choose what card you would scrap. Instead of scrapping the card, you say I reveal Nothing to Lose, and I will not lose my card. It'll go back to my hand. Now, the effect of the card when you play it is one of your characters gets +2 attack and bold 2 until end turn. Then flip one of your characters from bot or body mode to alt mode. Card does a lot. I'm gonna pitch this to Mr. Rogar here because he has played a ton of games with this card. Give me the rundown of maybe not necessarily the power of the card, but like the difference that this card went through the playtesting roles, because this card was very different to start and from where we are now. So what do you remember what those earlier versions of the card did, Ogar?
I mean, I remember there was a point where it just gave static attack and it didn't give the bold. I remember I think that the not scrapping it part was always there.
Yep.
But I know the other part of the card, like it didn't have the flip on it originally.
Right.
So adding that flip to it from bot or body mode to alt mode, I think that was a really big deal. I'll be honest, when we very first saw the first version of this card, I was not really impressed with it. It was a star card right away. It had the pips that it has now, but it just didn't feel like it did enough to warrant being a star card and having all the complexity that the pips add to it. So it just seemed like it needed to be either dumbed down and made more straightforward so it would be more useful, or it had to have something else added to it. And by adding not only the static attack, but also that little bit of bold, and then also giving that utility of the flip. And, the flip is nice because it's not overly powerful, because you can't flip from alt mode to something else. It has to be from body mode to alt mode. So that makes it so it's not overly powerful, but it's still enough utility where, like, my personal favorite way to play this card is in a Seeker deck with Starscream, the ATP Starscream, because he loves to flip, and if you can play this late game where you're flipping him from bot mode to alt mode, you get to flip him back, and you get the +2, and you get the bold, and you get bold from his ability, and you potentially get a blank pip card in your hand from his ability. Like, there's just so much that this does in that Seeker deck that I think it really goes a long way to making Seekers more viable in a competitive format, whereas Seekers so far have been a lot of fun to play, but they haven't seen a lot of tournament play. So I feel like this is a card that pushes them in that direction of being competitively viable, and hopefully we will see Starscream in competitive play, because I absolutely love that card. And one of the reasons I love Nothing to Lose as much as I do now, the version that's being released, is because of how much it does for that Seeker deck. Now, obviously, with the blue Wrecker pip and the white pip and the rest of the utility this card has, like you said, combating the hand disruption of decks like Shockwave, like, there's a lot going on in this card. So I think it has a lot of utility. My place I'm most excited to play it is with Starscream.
Yeah, I mean, the touch on, like, the earlier stage of this card, in design, we really thought just giving them a white-orange or giving the Wreckers a white-blue was, like, enough of a reason to play the card. I don't remember the exact text box either. I know it was similar to what you said. I know the flip wasn't there. The flip came in. I believe the flip was the last thing at the very end. It was mainly because we decided, like, like +2 attack plus bold 2. It's great, but it's not hitting on every cylinder, and it's probably not worth the star even in that point still, because, like, most Wreckers decks that are playing Heroic Resolve, now granted this is an orange and a blue particularly because of the spotlights, Villainous and Heroic, so the blues are always like, oh, well, I can just play Heroic Resolve, or I can just play Spotlights. A lot of Wreckers decks end up playing those cards like that, so, like, it was very, very hard making this card not an upgrade, because we didn't want to make another upgrade because we already had plenty of star upgrades, so it was important to get a star action out of this, and B, it was tough to just get over the hump of the other really playable star cards, to create that diversity. Like, now they're, before it was like, oh, I'm playing Villainous, and I'm 100% just gonna play Bullseye Aegis, or even the odds or something like that. Like, you're just like, you were always going to play those cards no matter what when you had Villainous. It was just, like, such an easy decision. Now it's like, all right, well, now do I want the double oranges? Do I want this white orange with this ability? Like, do I need actions? Do I need upgrades? Like, there's more choices in these particular traits and archetypes now because of this card, which is what's really important to me, because we really thought, like, just as a white orange or a white blue, it was just going to put the card over the top, and that just wasn't the case. So yeah. Anything to add there, Zigmus? I
mean, well, so it's kind of funny. You have Ogar as your Seeker guy, and you have me as your Wrecker guy. Because I
chose cards wisely.
I see what you did there. Yeah. I absolutely love the Wreckers. I think that they are probably hands down the best additions to the game to date. Not only because they're Autobots, and and that's a little dagger at Ogar, but the fact that they're just, I think utility wise they are fantastic, and they don't mind getting their hands dirty, just like they are in the show, comics, whatever. I didn't really read the comics, but I know in the show, like, they're all in. And it's kind of funny that they're blue, but it makes a ton of sense because, I think that they need that the most, because I think when you play Wreckers, you're geared towards running an orange version of the deck, because just Wheeljack is, in my opinion, I think he's the best 9-drop in the game. Impactor has the most utility, but I think that the new Wheeljack is easily the best character 9-drop wise. He flows so well, and they have such good, like synergies with each other. If he's by himself, he gets even better. They have their health pool isn't the highest, but I think that if their health pool was any higher, that they would be broken.
Yeah, I mean they're already they're already on the scales tipping high because of their 9-star cost. Man, they're some of the best static characters at 9 stars. So
yeah, I really like this. I really like Nothing to Lose. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna be very hard to fit it in because I was already kind of theory crafting with a new deck. Still keeping the records because I would like I like Captain Impactor. I think he's really good. I think Harpoon Gun from ATP3 is insanely good. And I like to use all those cards. Valiant Effort. If there was a way that I could give Wheeljack Leader, it would be so good.
It's probably a good reason you can't.
But I mean, hey,
he needs a promotion.
Yeah. I think Nothing to Lose is just synergy wise, just so good for specifically Wheeljack, and I honestly can't wait to try to fit it in the deck. I mean, I might even bench Impactor just to make sure that I can play this card. Yeah. At least the one of.
It's funny because like the Seekers are all about getting that high base attack and doing those crazy things, which is why it leans that way. But the Wreckers aren't going to turn that away either, and neither deck is going to turn away the free flip. I mean, the idea that you have the bot or body on there to cover yours truly favorite Perceptor. That's right. You know it. You know it. Yeah. Just to add that addition, because the Wreckers do have a lot of interchangeable parts, and there's definitely more interchangeable Wreckers currently than there are Seekers, just because obviously Seekers have been coming in minimals. So it's really interesting what this card has done. I mean, like I said, in testing, it was always a lot of fun. It definitely created those decision points we wanted. Like it's definitely not an auto include for sure. Like you might just want the double oranges. You might want bullseye Aegis, because honestly, like the Brave from bullseye Aegis is really important sometimes, even with depending on what Seeker lineup we're talking about here. But still, and the same thing. The Heroic Resolve it's a really good card in some of the Wreckers decks, along with Spotlights, just to have additional, orange blues, because you're already on that mixed pip setting. So this card definitely is. It's a very fun, interesting card. We're excited to see where it goes and what people do with it, because that's the fun part here, is because like these are both, they're both decks. The Seekers are for sure. They're both weaker, right? Like that's a weaker deck for certain. Where like I don't think we've seen a Seeker deck make a top 8 of an event since they've come in. So a card like this is definitely pushing them in that direction of like, all right, this is a powerful card. Let's see what it can do. Can it push them into that tier 2, if anything, and try and get things like that? And the Wreckers have obviously been quite close. They've had several top 8s at this point. So this is another tool for them to use, which is really a lot of fun.
You made a really good point that this is it's not necessarily an auto include, but it makes it more interesting when you're building a deck.
Right.
From that your perspective, like you said, Bullseye Aegis is a really valuable card for the bold, for the brave. But yeah, having this card there, like if you've already got an overabundance of upgrades, you just need an action. Mm-hmm. You can throw this card in. And it still has a lot of utility in the deck.
Right. All right, so we want to go to the next guy, right? Spoiler number 2. All right, so this is our first Titan Master head that we were spoiling, and this is the first Titan Master head that ATP has created. We have yet to create more heads. This is something that we decided to explore, and the first one on board here is Infinitus. So Infinitus is a 2-star head that gives you +2 health and bold 1. He's effectively Parsec and Kreb combined into one Titan Master for 2 stars. And then once he deploys, he's a Titan Master. He has the Specialist trait. He has 2 attack, 3 health, and 0 defense, and then bold 1. Before I pitch it to Ziggy here, what I want to point out about this character and briefly about the metagame in general and how important we believe that this type of character has to exist in the season 3. This is just season 3, and I'm sure if I went back to look at older season, like season 2 and season 1, the numbers would be even more dramatic. But for all top 8 decks of constructed play in season 3, there are 0 Autobot heads in play. 0. 0. None. 0. I just wanted to start with that. So Ziggy, tell me what you like about Infinitus.
Well, I mean, he's an Autobot. that should be your number one.
Sure.
Number two, I'm kind of like torn because now it makes it to where Fangry goes to the 8-star spot, you know? And I mean, Fangry's really good, and you give Fangry an extra bold, it makes him really, really better. No, but it does. It makes him good. I think that Autobots really needed this because I know people are gonna like complain about power level, power creep, but I mean honestly, you're combining two of the things that an Autobot and a Decepticon had, and Autobots really needed the health head, in my opinion. They didn't have anything that gave plus health. They always gave tough, and you know, like I don't know about you guys, but 4 stars for tough 3 with no additional anything.
I hear really good 4 stars for safeguard 3. That one. That one's really good. Continue.
I just don't. For me, it's kind of like they lost. It's like they made Grax and they made
Kreb,
Briscoe, and
Ominous, Doomshot. I can keep naming them.
It's like they made the 3 of them, and then they were just like, we'll just give Autobots whatever's left over, you know. And that's kind of how I felt with it. And you know, me looking at it from a perspective of only Wave 5. You know, I was just looking at it and I was like, wow, if I were to play just Wave 5, there is no Autobot head that I would play over those 3, Grax, Briscoe, and, you know, whatever.
You have to go to Clobber. Clobber's, he's like the only playable one. Like, the other ones are just they're so bad.
Even at that, it's debatable because I would rather have a Nate Pierce 4 than that bold. You know, because
I'm not arguing that that's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
if I'm gonna play any star head, I'd rather have that because basically almost all of the characters had at least 4 attack. So your base is going to be your Pierce base, and I mean, come on now, that to me is just outrageous.
Doesn't automatically fold to one of the most played secret actions in the game called End Hostilities, you know? It feels pretty bad when you pay 4 stars for a head and then they just flip over End Hostilities. You're like, all right.
Oh, I mean, no, I love flipping all my pure orange deck and turning it all blue and have 3 attack.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, how about you, Ogar? What's your feelings on Infinitus?
So what I really like about this is something that Ziggy already touched on, which is I actually played a deck with this in testing where I did put it on Fangry. The downside is I love my Fangry Kreb combination where he's 7 stars. A lot of stuff is bigger than him. He almost always gets his innate bold. He's great. This is only 1 star more, but it opens it up to where you can put him into an Autobot lineup, and he can still wear not only a Scoundrel's Blaster, but he can also wear a Noble's Blaster. So if that's the only weapon you've got in your hand, you know you've got a Fangry attack coming up. You can throw that Noble's Blaster on him. It's going to work. And if you're going into a Decepticon, even better. But if you're going into an Autobot, it's fine. But if you're going into a bigger character, then he's got the bold one from the head. He's got his bold 2. He's got a weapon because you were able to play that Noble's Blaster. Like, it's just, it puts him in a really good position to where he's more versatile. And I know that nobody's screaming that Fangry needs to be more versatile, but if someone who loves playing him, I'm a fan of that. Sure. But I also do think it puts you in a position where you can actually viably play a Titan Master team with Autobots and still get something like Heroic Spotlight, right? Like, you can still play that and have a viable head. You don't have to sacrifice playing the worst heads in the game just so that you can try to play a Heroic Resolve in your deck or something like that. You know, so I think that it puts it in a really good position to where people who actually want to play Autobots, I don't know why you would, but if you did want to play Autobots, you actually have a viable choice now. And, like, 2 stars is a pretty good spot to be for the utility that this head provides you. You get that extra health, you get the bold one. It's basically, like has already been said, you're taking Parsec and Kreb, putting them together, adding their costs together for the utility that they both provide. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it does what a new set from ATP needs to do, which is add variety to deck building. It gives you more options that you didn't have before.
Yeah, the biggest thing you touched on there was the Autobot Titan Masters. You literally couldn't play Heroic Spotlight. Like, if you wanted to play an Autobot Titan Master, like, you were shooting yourself in the foot if you were going to play an Autobot head. Like, it's such an unviable decision. Like, you're just like, how can I play Parsec? How can I play Styler? That guy costs 2 stars, and he's got 1 health. Like, when he pops off, like, you just can't do it. Like, you just can't.
I personally
can't
loved
do
it.
Stop.
I personally loved it back in the day when I had no idea how Quake worked.
Oh yeah, that's
my
a fun
head
one.
would pop off and Parsec would come out, and then they're like, "Yo, your Parsec's dead." I'm like, that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, but considering that I'm brand new to the game, I believe you. And it was bad. There was a couple times where I was just like, this makes no sense. This is like so bad. It's an auto kill to my Titan Master.
Your 2-star deployable.
Exactly. And I was just like, man, this is like really bad. I really wish Autobot heads were better.
Yeah, minimum effort. I think it's safe to say this guy is he's a definite game changer. And with good due, like, the game really needed some Autobot heads that were, at least you didn't look at them and laugh. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it really needed some more of those in its life. So I'm super excited to see Infinitus. I know in the playtesting event that we ran last month, there was a lot of talk about this character and the changes that it could bring, which is, I'm pretty excited about it. It's definitely something the game needed, and it's a fun way to do it. And this guy can go on the Decepticons too. Like you said, Fangry, he's one of them obviously, but you could put this on your bowl still, right? You can still put him on there. You can still put him on so many other of the ridiculous Titans
Quake.
that I don't feel like naming right now. You're still putting Grax on Quake. Don't worry about that. But you know what I'm saying.
Man.
Another thing to touch on with this that is really good is, we've kind of mentioned, like, especially with those Autobot heads, when they pop off, they don't do much.
Right.
They become a bot that essentially does nothing.
Yeah.
This is a character where when he deploys from his Titan Master, he's actually still, like, valuable to your team. He still provides something. He's got 2 attack and bold 1. If you're running an orange shell, I mean, he's actually going to still potentially be a relevant attacker, especially if you have a weapon to put on him. I think that's something that we definitely never saw from Autobot heads in the past.
Yeah, the thing that you touched on earlier was the Nobles Blaster, actually. In the current metagame, we're in a world of big boy blue decks, and most of those big boy blue decks are Decepticon centerpieces.
Yeah.
So, when even Norton, even naturally now, when a head pops off, it's always a Decepticon, which means your Scoundrel's Blaster is not getting there. The fact that this guy can catch a Noble's Blaster and be, 4 bold 1, it gives you a real shot at finishing off a character, whereas, like, it was pretty unlikely to get there with a Briscoe or a Krub, because without the Pierce, etc. This guy definitely gives you a better opportunity to get off with those attacks. So definitely some end game potential changes there.
And with 3 health, doesn't automatically fold to Magray.
That helps. Yeah. It helps.
Yeah. I'm all about diversifying my threats, and honestly, I feel like with him and say another 6-star like Sea Spray, because he's a common guy to play, I feel like that he actually brings something to the team where you're not just going to let him just completely flop, and you're not just going to be like, I'll throw him out, and like Ogar said, you put a weapon on him and he's potentially killing somebody late game because he can get up there. The bold gives you that extra shot to be able to flip something like a white, or even
just
flip one orange,
couple
and
more blacks
and
oranges,
3 and blacks. It's auto pierce basically 3. Like if you really think about it, if you're in an orange based shell, so I mean that's worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's go to our next and last spoiler of the episode. We got another Autobot head. Yes. This time we have Autobot Sovereign, who is a plus sturdy head. It gives your character sturdy. It costs 3 stars, and then when he comes into be a Titan Master, he's Titan Master with melee. He has 4 attack, 3 health, and 1 defense, and of course sturdy. So this is a card that, honestly, when we first started talking about it, was like pretty wild, because we're like, man, can we really give like anything sturdy? I love the bunny ears. It's perfect. So yeah, this is just one of those characters that, you know, we were really worried about this concept for a while. We're like, man, this needs to be 4 stars, and all these things, but we were really happy with how it came out. The 3 stars and the sturdy, it feels like a lot, but on any of those higher defense characters that you would really worry about with this, so like the Megatrons, or let's say Optimus Prime Legendary Warrior, Skull Smasher, right? Like any of those like higher up end cards, like, well, first of all, none of those cards are seeing play, right? So like if this card makes them see play, gigantic win. We're all going to be happy about it. And B, it wasn't overly oppressive to us. It was like, this is fine, this makes sense. This character, once it pops out, is really sweet. You know, it has like that Grax feeling with that 4 attack. Doesn't have the sweet 5 health like Grax does, but, you know, can't all be winners. But yeah, this was definitely a card that, for us inventing Sturdy and putting it into the game, for our metagame, it felt right for us to, if we were going to make and design heads, that we should get and design a sturdy head. So, Ogar, how do you feel about Autobot Sovereign and the plus sturdy head?
So what that last thing that you just said there is exactly my feeling on it. That, you know, ATP is what brought sturdy into the game. I think sturdy is an awesome mechanic that does provide a lot of variety to deck building. Huffer is an amazing character who does a lot as a 5-star. And the idea that, you know, like you said, if ATP is going to dip their toes into making heads, the 2 things that make the most sense are, 1, let's make Autobot heads that are actually viable and worthy of seeing play. And 2, let's get the mechanic of sturdy into the Titan Masters so that, you know, we can add that mechanic to the diversity of play that is, you know, full constructed or Titan 1 metagame. You know, that to me is what's most exciting. I think sturdy is a valuable enough thing to where I could see playing this on my otherwise all Decepticon team. I know everybody knows me as a guy who plays Decepticons and plays aggro, plays orange shells. I can see, you know, putting this into a lineup with otherwise Decepticon characters because sturdy is such a valuable mechanic. And I think if you're playing this on, whether you're playing Decepticons or Autobots, if you're playing this in a blue shell and he deploys from his Titan Master, now you've got a character with 1 defense, 3 health, potentially flipping blues. If you've got an armor on him or anything like that, or any you know, Flame War or Night Racer giving you tough, like this is somebody who could potentially survive an attack, get a second attack in, and provide just that much more value to your team. And again, this is what we were talking about with Infinitus, however you want to pronounce it.
I don't know. Someone will correct us.
But just like we were talking about with that head, you know, Autobot heads have not ever been played before. And I think that with both of these characters, we're putting it in a position where, you know, they're not the easiest thing to include because they are 2 and 3 stars, but they're valuable enough at those 2 and 3 star slots to where you have to actually consider them when you're building a deck with a Titan Master.
Yeah.
Like it's not automatic like, well, I have 3 stars for a Titan Master head, I'm obviously going to use Grax. No, you actually have to think about, do I want to use Sovereign because he's going to provide a lot to my team, and I have to think about what else is my deck trying to accomplish to decide between those options. And that, I think, is something that we really, really need when we're building Titan Master decks.
How about you, Zig?
So I actually had the pleasure of spoiling / playing this in our event. I played him on Perceptor. I don't think he was played the proper way. I think that I could have played maybe a better guy, but in a pinch, I was just like, Perceptor's really good. Let me just play him on Perceptor, you know? I think the fact that Mag Ray still floats around and this still sees a lot of play, the fact that they're just like Mag Ray and you're like, okay, no damage to this guy. I mean, that seems really good. And I'm just, yeah, I think that the fact that these Autobots heads are coming out, I think it'll open up to more. I think you're gonna see more than just Fangry, more than just horrible.
Right.
I think you're gonna be able to see don't get me wrong. I know he'll be a big boy, but I mean, you see a sturdy head on Megatron, you know, and I
3
think
defense
that
and sturdy is nothing to shy away about.
I mean, no, it's not, and I mean, I do like my tanks. I've been playing a lot of tanks lately, and I mean, I'm okay with 15 health and sturdy. You know, that's basically. I mean, yeah, the star count's a little high, but still, I think.
And sturdy on that with 15 health, yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like it's worth a try, and I think that that's what really why these cards are so good for everything, because the fact of making cards that you would not normally bring out of its box that's sitting at the bottom of your closet, you're just like, you know what, I think I'm gonna try it out. And the fact that you can play League and test them out, you're not testing them out in tournament. You could always play for fun, tweak whatever you need to tweak, and then if it's an actual competitive deck, then yeah, like I played the tanks deck, as I said, and I played it in a tournament, but I had a lot of fun playing it because yeah, there was some characters in there that everybody sees play, but I was playing a vastly different deck than what the normal meta for the tanks are. Like, yeah, I was playing Hunker Down. Yes, I was playing Composite Armor, but the fact of the matter is that my strategy wasn't so linear that it was just like, I'm just going to attack and try to get maximum bold and try to do this, try to do that. It was more like direct damage. I think I was hitting sometimes almost 6 direct damage a turn, and I mean, that's pretty spectacular, and at the cost of 1 damage to me and maybe 2 cards from my hand. I mean, I'll gladly do 6 damage. Lesser decks, sometimes that hurts a considerable amount. 6 damage is nothing to play around with, So that's normally about a third of a normal character's health. So a normal, main, your figurehead character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, all in all, I do like Sovereign. I think he's very solid. I definitely want to try him out more. And I'm hoping that I don't know. It's hard to try it without it, because wright now I'm pumped because now it's now we can start building. Now we can start learning what we're doing. We're gonna figure out the ins and outs of these characters, and you're gonna immediately know what's good and what fits by seeing these characters out on a board.
Yeah. So it's funny, you compared him to a Graxogar. It's supposed to try and be that, right? If you look at the stat lines and you look at the cost and things like that. But I actually compare him more to a Doomshot, to where that sturdy is really kind of like a counter to a Brave. I can play my Brave, which is a fairly common strategy for certain decks where they're I'm gonna board Doomshot, that's why I can protect my team. I look at Sovereign as kind of that aspect of okay, I'm playing this head, I'm playing a Grax, I'm playing this, or I'm playing that. My opponent just has a heavy direct damage build. I'm gonna board Sovereign, because right now, that's the hotness right now. Direct damage is the hotness. So Sovereign coming in out of a board. Now, granted, I'm not saying this is a guaranteed thing, but Sovereign as a board option, kind of like how protecting your team is with Brave, is how I really value this card. Is that I do think, I think in season 3 we've broken the mold a little bit, because we finally are getting to see sideboards that are transformative, and you're seeing a lot more cards coming in from the board that you weren't really seeing honestly before this season. But this is the first time that with bringing back the big boy meta, you're seeing the sound waves come out, you're seeing the thrust come out. these are sideboard characters that like people really just didn't have before. Like the metagame didn't really afford you to having this like really unique character unless you were a very particular deck. So this is like we're kind of trying to get into that again, where it's like I want my sideboard character to feel more important in more matchups, which is like a really difficult thing to do, to be honest, because it's very easy to create a deck and create a plan, and like it's very difficult to know exactly what your plan doesn't work against, you know, because like especially going into a brand new metagame, when you go into a brand new metagame, you're discovering things left and right, so it's hard to figure out what that character in your board's supposed to be doing. But a card like Sovereign, if you're playing a Titan Master, is a perfect like, oh well, I can probably get away with this guy, and he like if I'm missing some part of the metagame, you know, if there's more direct damage going around, if Impactor is really good, if Magray is still really high, you know, like there's all these cards that are like I mean, like Aerial Bots, if Aerial Bots is going to make a comeback, you know, like things like that. Like there's all these real high output damage cards that a card like Sovereign, even if it's just, you know, reducing one of those damage, you know, enough times it gets pretty difficult, especially on the right type of characters. So that's my favorite part about what Sovereign represents, is that he's just a choice. Like he people choose to play Doomshot. People you know, choose to play Ominous and things like that. Like I look at this character as one of those types of characters, and not necessarily like I'm gonna build my deck around Sovereign or I'm gonna build my deck around having Sturdy. Like you can probably do that right now, and it's, you know, you're going to be really annoying to a certain part of the metagame. But is that really the best option? Whereas, like, if this is my backup plan, then maybe that's good enough. So that's what I really like about Sovereign.
I think he has a really, really solid place in sideboards. Like, even if you don't build your main deck around him, I definitely think if you have, you know, a Titan Master team with a 3-star head already, I think Sovereign is an amazing choice to put in your sideboard, especially if you have a lot of Autobot characters. You know, if you're running Wreckers with Cup, or you're running, you know, Perceptor, or whatever the case may be, and you've got that 3-star spot that you can side Sovereign in. I mean, because you're going up against a Decepticon deck that's doing a lot of mag rays, or a lot of there's a Bull that's doing 1 to you every single turn, or 2 or 3 direct damage to you every single turn, and you can just flip a switch and turn that off by siding in Sovereign. That's a really big deal.
Yeah,
that can make a massive difference.
Yeah, I'd say I totally agree with that. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on earlier, when you said like if you're at the end of a game and like you're like they pop your Sovereign off, and then your Sovereign's able to pop their head off, right? Like if we're in like one of those games, Sovereign head heads up against every other head is in a pretty good position, like you said. Like that 3 health, that 1 defense, in most decks he's probably playing, he's probably in a blue shell. Like there's a good chance that he might be able to defend off a head attack, where we're basically just used to it at this point. Like the last head that pops out is almost always the one that wins the game. So like the idea that this is a character that might be able to take a hit, you know, like and survive that and give you a real shot, you know, like if you just drop an end hostilities down and go, all right, you know, kill me, here's a shot. Like I think that's actually a really interesting thought too, because it's very uncommon do we see where a head gets to survive an attack. It's like, yeah, Grax has 5 health, and every once in a while you'll see it, but it's still super, super uncommon when it really comes down to it.
One more thing to add too. I think that another thing that we're missing too is that not only are these Titan Masters, you know, like you can use them for them, but there's also Fort Max too.
Yep.
That now this can go on to Cerebros. So I mean, you have, you know, Infinitus, as you said, who could be good. And
Infinitus,
you know,
at 2 stars that's a pretty interesting option for Fort Max.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, because on top of Cerebros, you, as long as you trigger, you're good to go. I mean, and if you can consistently trigger, yeah, and I mean, and then if you see way too much direct damage, I mean, honestly, your only option for Fort Max is to switch to Titan Master. So put the other head in there, but right. Sovereign. I mean, it could be a thing.
Yeah,
and there's really no way to figure that out unless you test it.
That's fair.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's a really good point, that actually this is a potential sideboard option for Fort Max, because that's something I don't think Fort Max really has right now. Right. Because you're either playing Max or you're playing nothing.
Right.
There's no other good option. Whereas if you bring in Sovereign, you actually have a possibility to change the game. Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Well, that is it for our spoilers. They are. That's it. That's what we got. We got, hey, we spoiled 3 cards this set. All right, we are delivering today for sure.
Super awesome.
So, I didn't expect to go this crazy long on spoilers, but I guess when you're spoiling 3 of them, there's plenty to talk about. But we do have a couple questions from the community for the playtesters that I wanted to ask you guys specifically. So I'm probably not going to touch on them all because we don't want to go too crazy long. But I want to pick on a couple that I really, really enjoyed.
Give it the hard ones.
Let's start with our friend Christian. Christian asks, in what ways were your experiences playtesting this set different from playtesting other ATP sets? Ogar, you've been a part, I think, of all of them. I'm pretty confident. What do you think separated this one from the others?
So, I know that we haven't seen. I don't know exactly when this is.
So
coming
at this point, we will have seen Starscream and Hot Rod / Rodimus Prime.
Nice. Okay, so people know and have seen a couple of the Legend Mode characters by this point.
Right.
So what that means, and that mechanic in and of itself really changed the game in playtesting, because not only are we playtesting new characters that have new abilities and figuring out what teams they fit in and things like that, we're testing an entirely new mechanic that is more transformative than a mechanic like Sturdy. Sturdy changed things, but not fundamentally. Whereas Legend Mode, that is a whole new, in the same way that Titan Masters kind of changed the game for Transformers, the TCG, Legend Mode is doing the same thing. You have to play around Legend Mode characters in a way that you've never had to play around a different character before. So I think that made a really big difference. This set also has gone through some stratagems that I think were really interesting. Not all of them are going to end up being in the release set, but I had a lot of fun playtesting some of the really early ideas. And then, I think that the Legend Mode is the really big thing. And the other thing was some of the support that this set is giving to the Junkion format. That was really fun to test as well. And I think that as each set has come out, the design team, of which I am not part, I just test the ideas that the design team comes up with. I think the design team has gotten better and better with each subsequent set at saying, how do we think this new card could impact the meta? And then as a tester, getting to say either, yes, you're right, that is how it would impact the meta. No, you're wrong, it's actually going to impact it more or less than you expected, whatever the case is. I think that the design team is honing their abilities to say, we can design a card that is going to answer something happening in the meta, make things more interesting, and not break anything. To be able to do all of those things at once is an insane balancing act. And I feel like seeing this set come together, I've seen that balance be struck a lot more consistently. And I feel like that's been really fun to test with, because it means that we're getting interesting, dynamic, and impactful cards that have been really fun to test and are also going to be really fun to see in all of the players' hands and to get to use in a broader sense than just within the group of playtesters.
Right. To follow up on Ogar real quick, the way we did playtesting this time was a little bit different than last, where we started with a smaller group, and then every few weeks or whatever, we kind of brought someone else in to... what we called it, honestly, in the design table was fresh eyes. We always wanted to have another eyes, a set of eyes that come to the room, because there's obviously everyone gets attachments, right? Everyone can read something 100 times and not see a mistake. So it's really important to always get fresh eyes. So Ziggy was not a part of the first month of playtesting. Ziggy came in about the first or second week of March. So by the time Ziggy had come in, the Legends had already gone through several changes. Arise had been modified several times. As we spoke about it in the last podcast, the Arise text box went through 14 changes or some shit like that. So by the time that Ziggy had come in, which was 4 or 5 weeks in the process, it's probably already changed 5 times, if we're being completely honest. So Ogar had seen it day one to now, right? He had experienced the entire thing, so he had seen a lot of the really ridiculous, bonkers, broken shit from February, like broken, bonkers, obnoxiousness shit, for sure. But Zeke, when you came in March, and you started reading the cards and you started playing against Legends, like how did you feel about the mechanic coming in later than the start?
So instead of taking like a defeatist attitude to certain things, because obviously playtesting, there's the balancing act, as Ogar said. It's not nothing is perfect. That's why you're playtesting it. That's why you're trying to figure out, in the infancy stages of it, why it's so either good or bad and what you need to tweak. So I played a lot against the legend mode characters, and I was the normal decks. Like I didn't have any adds to it. I played I believe against a few playtesters that were specifically playing legends. And I'm not gonna lie, for a while it was really hard to try to figure out like who to attack. I understand that I was getting offered up a legend, or offered up a guy to kill, and he was just gonna go in legend mode. And it's effectively like giving him like a turbo boosters. But just, him taking his health and damage, him healing one, but getting turbo boosters. And the person who I thought was the most oppressive, I realized after the fact that it wasn't really oppressive, that it was just a way to, like, you just have to alter your strategy when you're playing against the guys. You can't just go balls to the wall and hit their big guy, first turn, because it doesn't prove anything. Like even if I'm a pure orange deck going against a pure blue deck, their legend guy still hits relatively hard. He still has abilities that you have to worry about. So you have to, your mental chess game, you need to start to build your strategy from the time that he's tapped. You need to figure out when is the best time to kill him. It's not easy at first, and then you start to get used to it. Just like everything, like after getting my face pounded in about, I don't know, 10 times in a row, I was just like, okay. So I started trying to formulate strategies around the person, So eventually I wound up, getting a few games in and out, and then I play tested my own versions of it. But I mean, all in all, I think that the legend modes, they're good. They're not unbeatable. Just like every card that we do. That balancing act is literally what you have to go for. There is a balance to it. Trust the process. I promise you guys that if you do try it out, that eventually you will figure out ways around it, and it's not unbeatable.
Yeah, it's been said a couple times now, and I'm sure it was covered in the article yesterday about Rodimus, that anyone that read that and now is watching this, they really do ask. They ask players. It's a skill check. It's one of those at the door. You need to learn the differences that this character presents and the differences that the game state changes because of X, Y, and Z. Like when the Titans, when I literally was told what the Titans did by Drew and by Matt of the design team, my immediate reaction was, that's going to change the game forever, right? That's exactly how I feel about Legend Mode. Like the concept of the way the characters are is that they are absolutely going to change the game forever. Every single time you sit across from a Legend, you have to play a different way. You have to understand they have different tools, right? Like they have tools that you're not even used to them seeing. A card like Energy Transfer, like I said, was one of the most played cards in testing. That card's never seen play ever, right? So when you go into a game, and I'm not saying that Energy Transfer is the best card and it's going to be in every Legend deck. I don't think that's true. But the point is that it is a card that can be, and it's a card that actually can be really abused by Legends. So it's like one of those things that you just never thought about before, like, right? Like you just literally never thought about the card existing. So it's something like that you need to understand that first time you get energy transferred, you'll be like, oh shit, right? Like it's gonna be one of those like, shit, like, all right, yep, he got me. That's pretty good, right? So it's things like that that are very interesting and very intriguing for sure. That I do enjoy about the Legends. All right.
I think that it's like you said, it's really going to change the way that you play. And if you don't change the way you play when you play against a legend character, you're going to have a tough time. But I think that makes the game more interesting.
That's fair. Oh, let's see. Let's pick one of these questions from Mr. Wyatt. Here we go. This is always a fun one. What was your favorite card during PlayStation / development? I'm gonna let you say the name of a card if it's not something that's been spoiled yet. It'll be fine. Just say the name of it regardless. And what I would like to add to this question is, it can even be a card that got cut, and you can tell me that card and tell the people about that. So let's start with Ogar again. Ogar, what was your favorite card in testing?
So I want to allow it to be spoiled through the proper channels, so I'm not going to go into the card that I want to say.
Okay. Is there a spoiler to the spoiler?
Heralds.
Oh, okay.
Heralds.
People keep hearing about those. Pretty good.
I love the Heralds. I will say that. But what I will say, but my to answer your question, I think one of my favorite things that did not end up making it was at the very, very beginning of testing for this. There was stratagem for Sound Blaster and a white weapon and a star.
Fist of Frenzy was the name of the weapon.
I never remember what it was called. Fist of Frenzy, and I also don't remember what the Sound Blaster was called.
I don't remember the name of the stratagem. I remember what Fist of Frenzy does.
All I remember is that it was. I love Sound Blaster. I think Sound Blaster is an amazing character with a really cool mechanic, and I really enjoy playing with him. And so, the idea of him getting a stratagem and a weapon that he could use with that stratagem and like create a more dynamic team with him, or slightly change the way I have been playing him in the past. That was something that was really, really fun to me, and I'm sad that it didn't make it through the playtesting process.
That's fair. So Fist of Frenzy was a star upgrade that was a white-black. The reason it got cut from the set was because of opportunism, actually, because we didn't want to make two white-black upgrades in the same set, even though this was a star card. But what it did was it gave steamroll.
That's what it was. Yeah. And having that on Sound Blaster, when you can pull a weapon, you can pull that weapon out of the scrap, and you can pump him like you can play an upgrade that boosts his attack.
I believe the stratagem like gave him a minuscule amount of health, and it allowed you to play some number of black star cards, if I remember correctly.
It was like Villainous Spotlight or Heroic Spotlight cards to orange and blue cards.
Right.
It did to black cards, so you could play two extra stars of black cards for 1 star on the stratagem.
Yeah.
So I built a deck that was Sound Blaster with his stratagem, Night Racer Fangry, and then had those 2 Fists of Frenzy in there. And if those are in your scrap and you supercharge Sound Blaster, swing in, grab the Fists of Frenzy, you swing for an enormous amount because it's a weapon, because you supercharged, and because I was playing an orange shell, like you can do this enormous amount of damage, and then Fist of Frenzy does the steamroll. Like it was phenomenal. It was so much fun. I understand why it didn't make it through the playtesting process because there were other things that were more important to get through and added more variety and fun to the game. But as someone who likes to play Sound Blaster, I had a lot of fun with that.
That's fair. How about you, Zig? What's your favorite card so far in testing?
Come on, man. First off, Decepticons suck. Secondly, Autobots. My favorite guy is Hot Rod, 100%. I absolutely love the card. I think it's insane. I think he's too good to pass up, and I will be playing him all of this next, this next tournament season.
Says the guy who's super excited to play Overlord and has not played a single tournament with him.
Well, so I mean, I played a Primus match with him
illegally.
He was already banned, but it made me. I don't know. Playing Decepticons just makes me feel dirty, man. It does. It feels like I'm doing something wrong.
That's fair.
And I don't know. The extra card that I like that is kind of like he's my favorite character, 100%. Throughout all of it, I think he's badass. Just in general, but my favorite card, like battle card, is actually the. You said we can say the names, right?
You can say name.
I don't know
Yeah.
if this got split. Reflector Cell.
Oh no, hasn't been spoiled yet. But
Okay.
that's a good card. That's a good card.
I really like as well that has
Yeah.
a color that I'm a big fan of and has some utility that I'm a really big fan of.
I see what you did there.
Ironically
I
enough,
see.
Reflector Cell will be spoiled on the next spoiler cast. So there you go, guys. You have something to look forward to.
So we're actually, me and Ogar and Dan are from the future. We know that it's going to be spoiled. That's why we said it.
There you go.
Just for the record. No, but honestly, I think that was my favorite card to play. I did play it in my Sovereign deck, and it was a 3 of. It was I think it was just that good. I think it's going to go pretty well in the Wreckers deck that I'll be playing with Hot Rod. It's not going to be a Wreckers anymore. I can't even say it with a straight face because it's going to be Hot Rod. It's going to be it's going to be Wheeljack, and it's going to be Merc B.
Oh, there you go.
So I mean, if I can't do the stars, if I miscounted, I forget. It's Hot Rod
9.
Okay, yeah. So I did it right. 997. So yeah.
There you go. Oh, there we go. I can't wait to look forward to that disaster. I mean, what?
Oh, thanks. Cool. Yep. I'm gonna leave now. Don't worry.
All right. So this was one of my favorite questions actually asked by anybody. It's from John Palmer. Obviously, a few of the ATP cards, particularly from ATP 1, are high on power curve and understandably banned in Titan 1. Any thoughts on where the misses were on the ones that don't see play, particularly and specifically anti-air battery and such heroic nonsense? Now, the problem I have with this is that such heroic nonsense won a tournament. So, yes, people
That's nonsense, Palmer. That's nonsense.
Like, yes, people don't play it. I'll give you that much, but it won a tournament, so it can't be a miss, right? Like, it won an event. Like, you can't call that a miss.
Yeah, but see, like cards like that, when you're catching somebody by surprise.
Heyo.
It's not catching somebody. I combined both of them.
Yeah, you did.
But whatever.
You did a good job.
It's fine. I know. I'm a
Spoiler
hybrid
alert,
player. What
spoiler
can I
alert to
say?
everyone watching. The league prize for June is the alternate art take by surprises that match the alternate art catch off cards. Oh, look at Ogre's face! He's so pumped.
Yeah, can I get mine first, and then I'll just rip it in front of Ogre.
I'm gonna have it in hand pretty soon, so it's probably, you never know.
All right. Just give me one that was like damaged, so I can just.
So yeah. Go ahead. Anyway.
So, I mean, here's the thing. Like when you have those outlier decks that no one's really prepared for, and like no one's really talking about it, and then you have somebody working on it specifically very hard, it's going to do well. Especially you put it in the hands of, it was Christian, right? Who won?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean Christian's a great player. There's no doubt about it. It's he tested it out before. I mean, in fairness, I think that it was like the perfect storm as to why he did so well. Because he was playing Paralyzo box with it, right? That was the Paralyzo box deck.
Yeah. It's also like you said though. It took by surprise because he played it in that event. He won the event. I know he didn't. He wasn't like flawless. Like I think he had at least one, maybe 2 losses before top 8 because I think he went 4-2 before top 8. And then had a good run in top 8. But he brought that to the next Titan 1 event, and he went like 0-2 drop. So the deck. It did live and die by that quote surprise factor, or really realistically the matchups, and I do believe his matchups were pretty friendly in the top 8.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the meta in general. When you look at that meta and you go back to it, Paralyze about everything. Nobody was doing hybrid pips. Nobody was doing. Majority of the decks were pretty linear. Like you go against your first deck, when he goes and throws his throwaway guy into his first attack, and you're like, oh, it's an all blue Perceptor deck. All right, well, let me put this Paralyzo box in here. Let me put this in here, and then next thing you know, Megatron's attacking for 17.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that just kills my Perceptor from full health, no big deal. But
Yep.
that's what that wow factor, surprise factor is that it was a great meta call. and then you see that what happens with the meta-call that you try to stick to your guns, and the next tournament it was a wash.
Yeah. So the anti-air battery. Honestly, Palmer for
hard to work.
What?
So do I for tanks.
Oh, so
I want that card to work.
Here's my thing with anti-air battery. From the origins of its core design, the card never had to exist, right? Like, if I have to be completely honest, like, that card, Demolisher does not need a stratagem to be a playable character in the game. He was already a playable character in the game. He was already in several versions of winning deck lists. What the card does, now granted, anti-air barrier, once again here, it made it top 4 of the Invitational of Season 1. So, like, it's not a card that's never seen play, it's seen limited play. But it's seen success in limited play. So, like, it's hard to say it's a miss if someone was able to make it succeed in some fashion. But that's a card to me that is a hyper situational card, and even to this day, the requirement for an 8-star tank with 10 health is really hard, even with the additional abilities that card gives. And I think that's where I would consider it a miss, is that it's in the concept of the world that, like, 8-star version of Demolisher isn't better than 6-star version of Demolisher. So it's like, it's cool that you have that ability, and if you want to use that, especially, like, let's say you're a Demolisher deck and you just want to use your stratagem slot for anti-air battery, because we offer the stratagem slot in our events. Like, that, it's not a bad card to have. Like, you never know when you're going to need it. Like, if it's a free stratagem to try, I don't see why you wouldn't just have that there as an option. Like, it's a very unique option to bring in. It'll definitely catch some people off guard, that's for sure. But what do you think, Ogar? What do you think some of the lesser played cards of all of the sets that we've had seen far? Why do you think that happens? Can I give you one and you can tell me why you think it isn't that way? Does that help? Sure. All right. Ramjet. So ATP2 Ramjet. What do you think happened with Ramjet?
So what happened with Ramjet, from my perspective, is that I got to play every single iteration of that character through testing. And the very first version of Ramjet, with the original versions of Thrust and Dirge, were unbelievable. Like, just insanely powerful. And they could not exist the way that they were originally created, and they had to be modified. And what ended up happening was, I think it just came down to that matter of balance. It was really difficult to find a way to allow the character to do what he was trying to do and have it be good enough to be playable, but not so good that it was broken. And I think that it's just a matter of, he was from ATP2. It was the first time that the design team of ATP was designing and releasing characters, and to be the first foray into, creating characters wholesale and creating a team wholesale by creating the Seekers. I think it's understandable that the perfect balance wasn't met, and I think that there have been attempts to, with the creation of Starscream and ATP3, with some of the Seeker support, like Nothing to Lose, which we've talked a bunch about today. There are attempts subsequently to say, okay, here's what didn't work. What are ways that we can approach it after the fact? But I think that it really just came down to balance, because there were so many versions of Ramjet that were ridiculously overpowered, that it became really difficult to say, how do we stay true to what this character is trying to do and make him well balanced? And I just think it would be difficult for anyone who is just beginning to create and design characters to immediately be able to strike that balance and say, this is going to be a character that's good enough to compete on a viably in a competitive meta, but not be overpowered. Like, striking that balance is a huge, difficult task for anyone to take, and it just didn't end up working out with that character. And it sucks, because I really like the Seekers a lot, but it kind of just is what it is.
What's crazy to think about now, and the reason I particularly named Ramjet, is when you really think about what Ramjet does, he was probably an early version of what the Legends are, right? Like, he can't flip until he meets certain requirements. He has very specific modes that like do unique things. So to me, it's really funny, like when you look at that character and you look at the legend modes and the way that we approach them this set. It really it shows the growth that you just admitted, right? Like the fact that like we knew what we wanted from that character, but in the end we just couldn't figure out how to make it, honestly, just to make it not busted. Like I've said this on several occasions throughout the entire existence of the game from years ago. Like the line in which this game walks on between like playable and unplayable is just so thin. It is so thin. And that card 1 star cheaper is probably broken, right? Like it's just probably broken. Like if we're being honest, like the card is honestly probably broken 1 star cheaper. But, you know, 1 attack more, 1 defense more, you know, bold, any of those things might put that card into just another level. And at that point in time in design, I think we were afraid to go to that level, if we were being honest. Like, I think we were. Like, we knew that this card had potential, but, like, we were probably afraid to push it so far because it was our first crack at making characters. So, I think your observation is completely on point, to be fair.
Yeah, and I mean, he had so many, like, playing upgrades from the scrap and all these other things that he was able to do. That like were really, really cool abilities, but balancing them. Whew.
Ogre, for the people at home, how much do I hate the card Swindled?
As much as I love it.
So yeah, I forgot to tell you guys the name of this episode. It's it's No Regrets. Right? You know, shout out.
No regrets.
So yeah, so the name of the episode is No Regrets. And we definitely have no regrets in the end. You know, some of these cards, you know, yeah, they fell short. And even in a world where you're trying to design 20 to 25 cards that all are going to impact a metagame, it's inevitable that not every single one of them will. Like, even if they all have the power level to be better than most of what's before it, a metagame is still a metagame. So, you know, you're going to see cards come in and come out. I mean, if honestly, like my personal favorite is Highbrow and Sea Spray. At the beginning of the season, you saw everyone in the world playing Sea Spray, and nobody was picking up Highbrow. Well, in the month of April, or at the end of April and the beginning of May, we had back-to-back wins with a Highbrow in a deck. You know, so like it showed the evolution of like, man, both these characters are really good. They're very playable, and I can see everything that Sea Spray has to offer up front. But sometimes you need to look past the upfront stuff and say, oh, well, what can this character, you know, bring to me? So I think Highbrow and Sea Spray are really great mirrors of those things. And I think that there's always that potential. This is my favorite. Like there's always potential to build onto it. You know, the Seekers, even though in ATP2 they definitely fell short. They didn't get a lot of love. They didn't see a lot of play. Even it's not even like they saw play and they didn't do well. It was like people weren't even attracted to them. So over the course of time, we've hoped to change that. The Starscream, I think, was a great step in the right direction. And I'm hoping that with all the cards that we're releasing in ATB4, it'll continue that way. That's the big hope. So yeah, that for me, I think is easily one of the biggest quote misses is Ramjet, which I think Ogre, I think you killed it. I think you had a very good explanation why. Anyhow, we are officially in closings. Is there anything you guys want to say before we wrap this up? I'll give you guys the floor one more time. Ziggy, what do we got? What do we got left for people to kind of get excited about, or for what you're excited about in the coming weeks?
So, I think that the biggest takeaway from every time something gets released is the fact you kind of just touched on it right there at the end with Ogar, but it's that it might not be great in the current meta, but it's what builds the future meta. And that's something you kind of have to look at. And I mean, it's hard to look at it, you know, when you're sitting here and you're just like, man, all these decks that I'm making aren't good. I'm playing the same deck. If you just take a step back and think about it, you'll always be able to get there. It just might not be your time for that specific card, you know, if it's a card you love, but you will always be able to get there eventually. Like cards are made, and the synergies will exist. You just have to kind of, I guess, naturally find them, and it's really hard to look at that and look like so far in the future. But I mean, like an ATP4 card that might not be too great, but you love the card itself. Who knows what it brings in ATP6, ATP7? It might actually be like one of the best playable things. And look into the future. I think that in ATP, it's fairly bright. I think we're doing well. The community's thriving, and I mean, if you'd have told me playing this game non-pandemic, okay, just put this in perspective. You told me that I started in Wave 5, bought 3 boxes, and then a week later told me that the game's dead, and that we're still playing this on May 29th, 2021. Like, I mean, nobody would have seen that coming. There's games that are dead that only survive based on the fact that there's people there to play them when you're sitting on the other side of the table from them. And the fact that I get to play cards with people where Ogar's from, and non-Philadelphians. They're not people from New Jersey. I'm not talking about the tri-state area. I'm talking about people.
New Jersey.
Yeah,
that's for anyone that gets that reference. You guys know I love you. There you go. Don't worry about it.
I don't like New Jersey.
Inside jokes.
Whatever.
Inside jokes.
You can only turn left. It's horrible. So yeah, but just like to put it in full perspective, keeping the game alive and playing it, the community is great, and there's not really much more to say. That's kind of it. I'm looking forward to ATP4 and then future ATPs. Just want to play the game. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
Go Primus.
Before I kick it to Ogar to finish this up, the idea that COVID started on like literal my birthday, March 15th of 2020, and several months after that we had worked in to start this tournament series. Like we have officially been doing online tournaments via webcam for a year now. Like that's crazy. Like it really is. Like it's just crazy to think about that we've been doing this for a year now, and it's like it just doesn't even feel that way. Like it feels like it's just like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday night at whatever, I gotta play Ogar in round 4. Like it's almost natural at this point, you know what I'm saying? Like so it's just like it's crazy to think that it really has been a year of this. And honestly, members, community come, they go, the players, they come, they go, but like that we're still getting new players. Like this last event we had Frank and Sandman from overseas. Like they just come into the thing. Butters is somewhat new. He's only been around for a few months. Like we have players that are still coming in that are brand new to the game. Like, you guys started in Wave 5. We have people that are starting in ATP 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the concept there is just awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's really great. And, like I said at the beginning here, you two, more often than not, you two might be one of the first two of the people even talk to in the Discord, because you guys play so often and meet so many new people in the Discord. So some new player might come in, they're looking for a game. Chances are they're going to find Ogar, they're going to find Ziggy before they even get in a room with me, right? Like, so that's the importance that you guys bring too, because you're that friendly, well, I mean, somewhat friendly faces, let's be honest. But yeah, neither here nor there.
Please. This is all premeditated.
But yeah, like my point is that you're part of that. You're part of that growth and that fun. The reason why a year later it all still works. So Ogar, go ahead, close it off. This is a great time. You finish it up, buddy.
Yeah, I think as far as looking to the future, the thing that's most exciting to me, like Ziggy had kind of touched on, and like you had touched on, Dan, not only are we looking at ATP4 coming out, we're looking down the road at what other expansions could come and what people are going to be able to do with these cards. The designers have all of the intentions, great intentions with all the cards that they design. The testers then take those intentions, subvert them, divert them, and flip them on their heads and figure out all kinds of other things that can be done with the cards to make sure that they're well balanced and not broken and aren't going to turn into something not wild. But then once the cards are released into the world, after they're all spoiled and everybody has a chance to look through them and print them out and get their physical copies, that becomes the really fun part, where ideas that the designers and the playtesters never even thought of can start to brew, and we see these cards in a completely different light. Whether that's like, the example you gave was Sea Spray and Highbrow, where Sea Spray right away, people were like, oh, I see the utility of this card, and it took a little while, but now people are seeing the utility of Highbrow. That's going to happen whether it's with the Legend Mode characters, the other characters that are being created, or some of the battle cards, whether that's Nothing to Lose, or some of the other battle cards that I'm really excited about that kind of have some synergy with some of the other characters that haven't been spoiled yet. I think that there's so much there that I see already, and I know the designers see and the rest of the playtesters see, that I can't wait to see, what the community at large does with those synergies, what new synergies they find, and, what ways people come up with to create new and interesting deck ideas. They're going to continue making this game fun to play. I play a lot of this game. I play as much of it as I can, and I don't want to sit down and play, across the table or across a webcam against the same exact deck every time. What makes this so fun is I can constantly be brewing up new ideas and new interactions between cards, but that's only interesting if I'm playing against someone who has also spent their time brewing up new ideas and interactions between their cards, and then figuring out how mine interact with theirs, and it just turns into this whole insane mental game that you get to play, and it makes every game interesting. Like, I can know my deck inside and out, but if I'm playing against something that I've never seen before, whether it's some crazy thing Jihen has come up with or whatever the case is,
or whatever Smurf threw together,
Smurf and Jihen are the two of the craziest deck builders that I are in the community, in my opinion.
Right.
And when I know my deck inside and out, but I go up against Jihen playing Dreadwing, or Smurf playing Quake, and I still function, like all my knowledge goes out the window, and I have to refigure out my deck in that matchup, and that's what keeps it so interesting and fresh.
Right.
So again, I'm really excited to see ATP4 get into everybody's hands, see what they do with the cards we've spoiled here today, the cards yet to be spoiled, and see where the meta evolves to and goes from there.
Right. Yeah. You guys, knocked it out of the park. Excitement is it's not even a word anymore in my vocabulary. It's just there. It's all the time, right? Like it's this whole process has been it's funny because it's the same timeline as every other set that we've done, but it has felt like it's been a bit longer, more straining for sure. I think Christian said it a little bit in his reveal video for Merkby. There were times where it did feel difficult, but it's really fun to finally get it out and let everyone else see it. You touched on it. Like, it's really exciting when we did that playtesting event a couple weeks ago. Like, just hearing people that hadn't seen the cards before, like, just talk out loud, basically. Like, oh my god, I want to do this with Infinitus, and oh, I want to do that with Rodimus, and like, oh my god, this makes Perceptor this, and like, oh, like, just anything that ever sparks the next interest, it's those fresh eyes, and like, this is the ultimate fresh eyes, right? Like, this is this has been gated to like 20 or so people, right? Like, that's what the playtester room is basically, and getting it out there and seeing the excitement for it is just, it makes it all the worthwhile in the end, and all the effort that goes in is just, it's great. Like, it's what we do it for. It's why we're still playing the game. It's why we're still having fun. It's why we're having these conversations. And because I haven't yet, thank you to both of you guys. The effort you guys put in makes my job infinitely easier, which is already what it is. But you guys and the rest of the testers are always just, every conversation is important to us, because it gets across points that we need to meet and need to see. So it's very, very important for us to be able to be there and watch those games and talk you through the games and talk you through designs. Like, when you guys ask, it's very important. Like, we always want to have the answer. Like, that's our biggest thing, and it's the reason why we do playtest as much as we do. Like, when someone asks a question, like, we want to have an answer. And you look at our metagame, and you have to realize that these cards are all built with that metagame in mind. Every single one of them, it's built in the idea of how to move the game forward, how to diversify the meta, how to bring certain cards back to the forefront. Like, all of those things go into making this set, and they go into making every set. So whenever you see any card get spoiled, any card, from any set, honestly, whenever you look at a card, you're like, why is that there? I assure you it has a purpose, it has a reason, and it will fit. You have to see the big picture. That's the biggest important thing. But thank you guys for sitting down with me tonight. A lot of fun. I'm really glad we got to spoil some cards. I'm glad we got to talk about them. Talk about some of the cards that didn't make didn't make the cut, right? Like those are always interesting as well. So I love hearing those stories as well. And I know that there have been so many of those cards, right? I mean, like just so many. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
See you guys.